Soulful House Nation, and I'm really, really pleased to be here today. I'm sitting here with, are you ready, ladies and gentlemen? Adam Cruz.
You like a sound effect? Hey, everybody.
How you doing, sir? Well, again, thanks again so much for coming out.
I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes. Well, Adam, we have a lot of stuff to cover, I guess in about an hour.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's do it.
First of all, let's just do this. For the people who haven't met you, let's let everybody meet you for a minute. Tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, so my name is Adam Cruz. I love the arts and I love music. I got into DJing when I was 10 years old because my cousin, who is older, was a DJ, and he gifted me his equipment and his records. And so from 10 years old on, I've never been the same. I was houseified, as I like to call it, you know? And so I started to explore DJing and beat matching, and I started to do, my little friends' parties, and I went to Rutgers. I met my now wife at Rutgers, and I was DJing. I would join a fraternity and DJ their parties, and so I was always involved in music and arts. But basically, the short of a long story is I'm an artist. I'm a songwriter, music producer, a record label owner, and I'm also a collaborator. I love to collaborate with other creatives, and throughout that experience, I was able to found some amazing things like Honeycomb Music. Next year will be our 10-year anniversary. Shout out to my mainest band, Josh Milan. And so a few years ago, I also started a radio station with Deuce Martinez. Shout out to Deuce Martinez. And my record label, Mixtape Session, has been operating for 10 years. So I've been basically spending a lot of my life around music and musicians and producers and DJs alike, singers and stuff. So that's kind of in a nutshell, who I am. And today you can find me at the Newark Library. That's our summer residency for our third summer. So shout out to the Newark Library. And so getting to know me means that you're finding out more about my DJing life, production life. And I also put together events, so that's a lot of it's around community outreach. So that's really a lot of the reasons why I'm so involved with this in this particular way, because I want to reach the community in the way that I know how, which is through music.
Now, when you first started, I know you mentioned that you had a family member gift you with the equipment. But, aside from the family member, who were some of your early musical influences? For example, like groups, artists, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, well, I have to start with my parents. My dad, when he was alive, was a vinyl collector, and he was creative in his own right. He and my mom met at a church. They weren't involved with the same church, but they were involved with a congregation of churches that once in a while they would all come together. And so they met during that coming together. And so they both have instances where they were either creating poetry pieces or they were covering, there's a story that my father once sang a hymn to the melody of Yesterday by the Beatles. And so they did stuff like that. My earliest influences, though, I have to be honest, was Angela Bofill, because my father was really into her. I really love the Doobie Brothers, but I also grew up in pop music, so I love like Madonna, KRS-One. So that was it was all on the radio to me, and then at home was this crazy vinyl collection. I got to know records like Hijack, Herbie Mann, all that stuff, because my mom was a collector as well. She collected 45s when my dad collected more 12 inches or full albums, if you will. So my earliest sound is that, and then I dove into freestyle, which they call Latin hip hop for some, but I love Judy Torres and Corrine and all that, and I loved hip hop. And then house was a natural thing because it was all under the umbrella of dancing, which is all that I could care about. When I was growing up, it wasn't about the latest outfit you wore. That was kind of important, but not nearly as important as the latest dance moves. They all had names, and they all had levels of proficiency, so the doper you were with it, the def, as they say, DEF, the fresher you were with the moves, that was meant that you were cooler as a kid. It was less about money, because I wanted to keep it 100. We were all broke and all poor, so it wasn't really about flashing outfits because we didn't have it. But we had moves. We could do dance moves.
Well, when you you mentioned the freestyle stuff. I remember Cover Girls.
Absolutely.
They were one of the first ones to actually come out on the radio. Cover Girls. And then
Expose.
Expose. There was Noel.
Yeah.
Then of course you had One More Shot. Those people like that. C-Bank. You had big time back then for that style of music.
Absolutely.
Now, what about today's music? Who are some of your favorite artists, if you can mention them?
Sure.
Or even some classic stuff that you like?
Yeah, so I mean, most people that know me know that I'm a major house music fan.
Right.
So I could go a list of my favorite house music artists. But I also tend to, I host a radio program called the Mixtape Sessions Masterclass, and it's basically everything but house.
Okay.
So to answer this question, I'm like, it's easy to go to who are my favorite artists right now. I mean, if on the singing tip, you know, I'm a huge supporter of Eddie Nicholas, Josh Milan, Dawn Tallman, Kia Stewart, Monique Bingham. I mean, you can go on. But then if you're talking about producers, DJs, I love David Harness. I love, Louis Vega Spina. Check a lot out of, I love At Jazz. I love, different groups like that. But right now, I think my sensibilities are really around colliding all of my interests, which I love Latin music and funk and dance and pop, and I love different sounds. So I think I find myself going down the rabbit hole, if you will, of music exploration. So.
Well, the truth of the matter is that even though, like, for example, and we're going to talk extensively about the library, you're playing mostly house music.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, you're playing house music. I mean, most of the people know about other stuff, and a lot of them come out of other different backgrounds. I tell you, it's very, very common that I see a lot of people come out of hip-hop backgrounds. They come out of, you mentioned freestyle. They also come out of, and like, if truth be told, some of them actually listen to rock and roll.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, most, and then jazz is another big thing. So I find that most people, even though that they're into the house music, also have other stuff that they listen to.
Exactly.
Because even if you're into it, let's say you're at work, maybe not playing house at the work.
Right.
Or let's say if you're in church, they're not playing necessarily gospel house, but they're playing, so that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you kind of told us, but I'm going to ask you directly.
Sure.
How did you get into Soulful House?
Okay, so it's really not that hard to figure out how the story goes. So this equipment that I got from my cousin, shout out to Frank Allah, he gave me the records as well, and it contained freestyle, but it also had a lot of house music. That's how I discovered like Chicago tracks, Tracks records, and records like Move Your Body, Marshall Jefferson, stuff like that, Mr. Finger. So how did I get into Soulful House? To me, it was the same thing as I got from Madonna, or as I got from tracks, or I got from freestyle. It was all, to me, if it was danceable and it touched me in some way, I was like, this was what I thought house music was. I didn't get a more refined understanding until much later, because back then when you were listening to house music on the radio, number one, it was called club, and second, it was in the kind of programming that you would hear like Teddy P, then you would hear Blaze, If You Should Need a Friend, and then you'd hear, something else, Colonel Abrams, and then it would go to Madonna. So it wasn't like this stations like we have it now for certain styles of music. It seemed to all be part of the hit parade, as they called it back then. In the course of the program, you heard all of those records. So.
Now, they say everyone has a book inside of them.
Is that what they say?
Because they.
I'm trying to share the link while we talk.
No problem.
Yeah.
Because they know, they know everything. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, and here's my question. All right, and then we got a lot of stuff.
Sure, let's do it.
How did you become an author? What happened?
Okay.
How did it come about?
All right, this is another long story, but I'll keep it short. So I used to run an old disco label called West End Records.
Oh, really?
You remember records like Loose Joints, Peach Boys, Tana Gardner.
Sure.
You go on, Billy Nichols, on and on. So I was basically the head of A&R and production at West End, and through that time I got this really great experience, which was analog versus digital. What do I mean? Well, in the disco world, everything's around physical goods as a one-to-one sales experience. What does that mean? That means that we're still operating at that time with the idea of what is platinum selling. We knew that at the time means 1 million records sold. It was really easy to figure out. We had Nielsen scans, so if you went to Tower Records or Virgin Megastore, wherever you went, and you scanned that latest album, it transmitted to a transaction that was kept in a database, and so it was really easy to figure out. So again, 500,000 copies meant you went gold, right? And diamond meant 10 million copies. It was very easy to figure out. So I was working at this disco label, and then I had the experience of digitizing all of this catalog so that people could consume it through download sites, because download was everything. iTunes launched, all of a sudden Napster was dealing with this issue, so I basically digitized the West End catalog, so that really gave me a lot of experience around that. Over the years, I worked at other labels, in particular like Honeycomb and Mixtape, and so out of that experience, I used to get a lot of calls. Let's pretend it's you. So Dan would call me up and say, hey man, TR and I were business partners at a label. We're now broken up. I'm ready to fly solo. Can you help me? So I would provide like consulting, answer some questions, kind of sit here, take meetings and stuff. And then it started 2 or 3 turned into like 13, 14, 15 requests to just talk.
Wow.
Well, hey, what do you know? I know you were doing vinyl. How do you press up vinyl? How do you okay? So out of that experience, my buddy Eddie Nicholas and I, shout out to you, Eddie. He's my best friend, and we talk about music business stuff all the time. And in promoting my 3rd album, I got in contact with an old friend of mine when I used to DJ the clubs in DC. He and his family moved to Sudan. He bought a signal, he started a radio station, so I started promoting my album and said, hey man, would you mind playing my album on your show? And so we started to talk and catch up, and before I knew it, I was seeing if I can get a slot on the radio program in Sudan. He said, sure. And so I hit up Eddie, said, Eddie, let's do a show. And so the Freedom Radio Hour was a result of that. It's a music business show. Over the years, we're now on 9 seasons. And what we discuss are publishing, royalties, deals, tragic stories of how, Dan and TR were together, they broke up as business partners, you found out TR took your money, or she found out you took her. So a lot of those kinds of stories. And so the music show, the Freedom Radio Hour, was basically debunking myths, trying to set things straight, try to be clear with the information. And so the book was basically a culmination of the research before every episode of what we were going to talk about. So today we'll talk about Spotify. Okay, what does that mean? And so I wrote this book. It was swirling in my head for a long time because I saw the connections, which were what happened with music over the years, from analog to digital to streaming, what it meant. And then particularly, I found it really fascinating when you thought about house music, because there's so many parallels to what's happening in the major business world when you compare it to small indie labels, indie markets like house music.
So. Okay, I want to jump in because most of us, let's say if you're a listener, if you're a dancer, you're not necessarily, even if you're getting into the business of making music, you're not really thinking about the business many times. You're not thinking about the business. But even if you are thinking about the business, you really don't know a lot of what's going on. Some people think that, boy, I made my song and this and that. But before I go on with that, here's one of the things that many, many DJs struggle with. And I know you know the answer, because this kind of stuff is also in your book. Your book addresses it either, not necessarily directly, but in general. So I'm on Facebook Live, I'm doing my thing, I'm playing mix after mix. The next thing I know, boom, my thing goes mute. Or you're blocked in 245 countries. They claim the rights. Now, typically, that happens with the majors. But not necessarily. Let's say Billy Bob's got a little label, he put his stuff, or she put her stuff up, and you can play those all day long. But as soon as you put on Teddy Pendergrass, then whether it's Warner Brothers, Sony, or the other big one is Universal maybe, what is going on there? And how about for the people like me who say, well listen, I don't own the rights, and boom, they still shut them down. Or the people who say, wait a minute, I paid for the music. How come I can't play it? Let's have a conversation around that.
All right, cool. All right, so while we're here and we're talking about it, I talk about a lot of this on the book. Bam.
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
so this is yours, your
By the
personal
way,
copy.
oh, fantastic! Because I got the Kindle one.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
So here's how it goes. So we're talking about a system that had to do with identifying songs. We're talking about three major labels. You talked about Sony, Warner Music, and UMG, Universal Music Group. Those are the three majors right now. So you're right. So your highest earning artist, or your most established, or your classic artist will have extra popularity on their services. Here's how it works. There's a system called Content ID. It's a fancy way of saying Shazam. Are you familiar with Shazam?
Of course I am.
Yeah. So now Shazam is a kind of app where right now you could download the app on your phone and you're at a club or at a bar or a restaurant or whatever. You could engage that button and then it'll listen to what's being played, and 9 times out of 10, 8 times out of 10, it'll let you know what that song is. What Content ID system that's really prevalent on YouTube and other platforms like Facebook and others do the same, is that they use that Shazam-like technology to track the copyrights of their roster. So what you're experiencing is the Content ID system working. It's tracking, oh, this is Teddy Pendergrass, that means that we own the rights, which means you, Dan, haven't secured the rights to then be able to broadcast that song. You see, artists need to be paid during that piece of it. That's called performance. In this case on Facebook, it's called digital performance. We are allotted rights around our music. So if I pretend to be Teddy Pendergrass, I want my music protected so that when it's out and streaming, I make money. I can't make money if I don't know where it is that income exists. So what we're talking about is protection of copyright, in particular digital performance. So that's what we're experiencing. Now, here are some of the myths. Some of the myths are the following. I want to be very clear. When I'm a DJ, I pay for that music, and all I'm doing is playing a set. You can't tell me what music to play. Correct, except in a digital platform, they have the option to turn it on and off. That's why you experience now muting of your video, or they will put you what's called Facebook jail, because what they're saying is you are habitually infringing upon copyrighted material. The other myth is that this is fair use, like the news. When you have a news out, you don't have to get the news permission to post an article. This is fair use. Out of that rumor about fair use came this post that people post, which is, I do not own the rights to this music. That's a clause that came out trying to fit within the framework of fair use. So basically it's a clause that tries to pretend we're news outlets and that we're allowed to make use of the songs like you do a news article or report. I want to tell you all that that is a myth. It will do nothing to save you from being put into Facebook jail or having your material muted. No matter what, you have the way the systems work. It doesn't care. It's not people. These are scripts, algorithms that are triggered by a song like Shazam. So that's what we're experiencing. The I do not own the rights to this music. It's like double parking on a busy street. When you put the hazards on, you think, I'm leaving a message for the cop. Don't ticket me. I know I'm not supposed to park here, but don't ticket me because I have these flashing lights. And what you're doing by putting that clause is pretending or believing the false statement that putting that up somehow will prevent you from being turned off, muted, or put in Facebook jail, which is essentially blocking you from being able to go live or post content, okay? Why is this important? Because we're in an era now where everything has to have some sort of value and protection. From the major standpoint, they're trying to protect their copyright. That's all that this is about. This is not a personal attack. Some people will go on Facebook and say, dear Mark Zuckerberg, please unblock me because I'm a DJ, I support the music, I love your platform, but none of that matters to them. This is not personal. This is a tracking device that track the music. You haven't secured it because they would have that information, and so that would allow you to put it. That's why in certain programs it doesn't mute a song that we all know. We're like, how come I'm watching this and it's not muted? Well, if you watch Pose and they're putting Loose Joy, they got that permission. So in order to broadcast that episode, it's not muted at that point because there's a talking to. Okay, Dan said okay, I said okay, so now it's on a platform, there's no blocking, right? That's what we're experiencing. We have to realize that we're not in a public space. Facebook and YouTube are privately owned companies that have the ability to exploit your material with your permission, because when you sign up, there's that terms and conditions. You say okay or click, and then you're allowed to put up content. That content is basically rented at any time to Facebook and Google for free. Because you're saying, I'm going to utilize your platform, but they're saying, fine, but we can use your content or do anything we want to with it because we're a private company. And so unfortunately, the misinformation that's out there is that these platforms are public. That's why people go, I can say what I want on my page. Yes, you can, but you don't actually own that. You're not even renting it. It's just somebody allowed you to squat. And they can kick you out, they can censor you. All kinds of things are occurring now because we're sharing information so fast. So that's kind of the skinny of what's happening with that.
Wow. So let's say if I want to play a set.
Oh, I'm sorry, one more thing. It has nothing to do with whether it's a major label or indie label. It's about this tracking business. So right now I have several independent labels that I work to release music on, and we use iTunes and Spotify and all of that. All of that means that it's tracked and marked, and specifically through ISRC codes. It's like a tattoo, a watermark that lives inside the file. And it says, this song belongs to Dan Shiver, of Dan Shiver Records, for example. And ISRC is short for International Standard Recording Code. So it's like a set of digits that's placed within the file to help track it.
So if I want to play a set, what do I have to do?
In what way?
Okay, so if I want to play, let's say I want to come, like you have a lot of DJs who have shows, they have weekly shows, they have stuff. And some of them you hear them all the way through, and some of them, like for me, like I never make it through. Or if I do make it through, then I see here, I get a message, you're blocked in 245 countries, blah, 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 blah. Why does one DJ get to play all their stuff? And if you go on YouTube, you can find all the major stuff, and then why does another DJ, bleep, bleep, part 2, part 3, part 26.
Okay, so let me explain it in this way.
And how do you get it played?
This is like finding needle in the haystack. Yes, there's these tracking systems, but you're talking about billions of visitors per month on these platforms.
Okay.
The ability to track and manage all of those assets are near impossible. This is why some DJs will experience their sets being available longer than others. Some, through their public pages, you realize might pay a performance royalty to PRS, so that's like a society that manages the rights. So it's, depending on the situation, you may have that or not. And it's only a matter of time. Have you ever had a video that played all the way through, and then maybe months down the line, or all of a sudden it says, Warner Music has claimed this, or they've released it so that now it's no longer partially muted, for example. These things take time. These are systems, remember. These are very large systems. It's not an exact science, you see? This is a system trying to deal with the influx of copyrighted material that's hitting the internet so fast. And if you're billions of visitors a month, can you imagine billions of visitors a month, all uploading their own content?
Well, how do I get my stuff played? Is there a service I pay so that I can not be in Facebook jail or straight up muted? Is there a service or anything?
Okay, so the short or long is, there's not one size fits all service that you sign up for that will prevent this thing from happening. And in short, in order for you to avoid this from happening, do not broadcast copyrighted material that you have not cleared. That's what this is all about.
Okay.
You have to get them all licensed to then have this experience that's uninterrupted. That's not realistic for you or I. And for DJs and artists, especially in independent markets, we don't have the coin to secure licenses for all of these songs. So, what I'm saying is play at your own risk. You're going to broadcast on these platforms. I would not put all your eggs in one basket. Like we've already talked about, you have Facebook, you have YouTube. Check out Periscope, check out Ustream, check out Mixler, there's all these platforms for video and for audio that you can take advantage of. Know that you are messing in copyrighted material. That's why we forget when we're DJs, we get the sense that we're just sharing breaking music, sharing the vibes, but we're actually playing other people's music by and large. Unless you're producing your own music and mostly playing that, even that will be protected because the moment you aggregate it, which means put it up on iTunes and Spotify and Tidal and all of that gets tracked. So to answer your question, what do? What you do is you need to diversify your efforts. Don't broadcast just on one. Try to stay away from your personal profile. Try to use your public page. You realize that your personal profile has a max of 5,000 friends, and you have to pay all of those 5,000 friends from being able to see your profile, right? But on top of that, be aware that the way the algorithms work, you get a small percentage of that total amount of friends that will ever see your post. It's just too fast and furious. And that's the truth. So if you're messing with a personal profile, you're already way behind the 8 ball if you're trying to build a brand, which is what we're really talking about, right? You're building a reputation for, if I click on Dan's page, I know I'm going to get the hot interviews. So how do I get it so it's uninterrupted? So for you or for others that engage in music like this, diversify your efforts, know what's happening, try not to get sucked into the vortex of lies, which are that I do not own the rights of this music myth, it doesn't mean anything, for example. Yeah, that's kind of the way to do it, because unless you're going to completely avoid the platforms, you're always going to be confronted with copyright infringement, because all of these platforms, they're consolidating power over time. So those systems are all going to be applicable to all of them. If you notice on Instagram, you don't get the copyrighted material muted yet. But you do know that Instagram and Facebook are owned by the same company, right? So you do realize that it's a waiting game now for when content ID systems will be applied to Instagram and Twitter and Periscope and all of the platforms, because copyright is still a concept that most feel still needs to be protected. Now, we should have a debate about the future of copyright, because the way it's coming out in the wash, we're actually losing more by fighting these things instead of trying to create systems that allow us remuneration, money for these moments. Anytime somebody posts it all, we should be having mechanisms to make money. Right now we're protecting, so we're trying to close the doors, but eventually we'll have to open it up so that there's more money available to the artists making it. But you should know, one last point about that, the DJ might be the person that bears the brunt of that cost. So you realize what's about to happen. DJs go, I already paid them $1.99 for the track, or I already ripped it, or whatever you do. You might have to pay an additional fee to keep that flow of posts going and live videos going if you don't want to be muted or censored or banned. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Wow. So that's well. Let's just put it this way. We're talking to the Bible right now. And he just shot us some scriptures.
I really feel like this. I honestly feel like I just was this guy that got burnt a lot. I was a guy that have always been very inquisitive. I won't just look at your outfit and I'm like, wow, how'd you get that color? Why did you get that?
My daughter asked me that question.
Very well. But yeah, I'm very inquisitive, so I think that's why I've been like, and I still have a lot to learn. I don't pretend to know it all. Actually, I always say this, I know very little, but what I do know, I'm starting to learn very well.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about DJing.
Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned you got into DJing years ago, and now the equipment has changed over the years. And I know you use, when I see you publicly playing on CDJs, you're playing, I'm guessing you're using record box. It looks like you're using, I see flash drive, I see hard drive, all that kind of stuff going. Now, there's people who also use controllers, and then you have some people who are still, it's getting less and less using CDs, and very rare, unless you're talking hip hop, you're going to see turntables. How do you feel about the evolution of the music in terms of the way it's played and the equipment and things of that nature? Software, hardware, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so I think the summary of what I'm about to say is really, it's all about the output, what it sounds like. I think people get caught up in what equipment you use when really at the end of the day, does it sound good? Does it present well? I think I apply that same principle with music production, and I just couldn't afford a lot of things. So a lot of the time, until I got to where I am today, and I'm still working on it, is what do I do to get a good sound, even though I don't have the thousands of dollars that somebody else might have to produce music or get that fly equipment. So I think it's all about what you can do based on the income that you have to buy the equipment. However, I also feel very strongly about being a student of your craft. And what I mean is that you've got to kind of have a child's eye, a child's energy level, a child's will to really tap into that inquisitiveness, to really be better at the gear that you're playing on, and to also research the different equipment that exists. Because I don't know about you, like in the name of talking about how I got burned and I had to learn about the game to just not get burned, the same thing was with DJing. Sometimes you roll up to a gig and they don't have what you're used to playing. What do you do then? Do you go, okay, call me when you have what I want? I mean, not every one of us has a ride already that explains exactly what equipment you will only play on. Most of us are still willing to play on most everything that's presented to us, right? So I want to say this one thing, which is that output is very important. What does it sound like? But I also want to be clear that sometimes we tend to use certain equipment as a crutch, and we're not willing to step outside of our comfort zone because it's hard and it's scary and it's uncertain and it triggers us in a way that we're uncomfortable with. But you have to learn. If you're learning vinyl, you got to learn CDs. If you're rocking CDs, you got to learn controllers. I say the same thing about, I do a lot of graphic design. I say the same thing about that. You got to learn how to work those applications in both Windows and Mac. Why? Because sometimes you don't know. You're going to roll up to a client and be like, oh, we only have Macs. What are you going to go? Oh, I can't make money today because I don't even know Windows. You have to know. And when you do that a lot over and over, and what I mean by over and over, we talk about that 10,000 hours. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, sure.
Whenever you take on a new profession or you want to become really proficient at something, most say that you ought to put in 10,000 hours of practice on that in order to be proficient.
Right.
So that's what a lot of this is. If you're a DJ, you should know how to work on the different controllers, mostly because you don't want to play yourself. You want to be able to be comfortable and not scared or trepidatious in any way, regardless of the equipment. Now, what do I use? Yes, at the library, I use CDJs, the Pioneers, but at home, I use Tractor, the S4.
Hey.
And and then I have vinyl at home.
Okay.
That's why I got the Tractor, because I could plug in my turntables and play my vinyl, because I still love vinyl. And I have my CDJs on top, so I have a little setup at home, and that's what I'm saying. It's about finding what works for you. The other thing is, I didn't have the money to buy everything at once. I had to buy it in pieces, and sometimes we have to. Like I have like one jankety thrift shop turntable next to my Technics B100 because I can only afford one turntable. So I had the record player that holds the record on top and then lets it down and stuff. So I had that for a while. But it's all about how they'd be like, oh, it sounds good. I'm like, I'm almost ready. Let me get the record down first. You know? Or you press the button, the thing would be up and then it would come down slow. I did all that stuff. So I think that's part of it, is learning, man. You got to learn how to rock these different equipment. But I'm not one to place judgment on DJs for what they use. I'm all about what does it sound like. Because I have DJs that rock all vinyl, and they're atrocious. They sound like they need to stop, right? And same on the other side. I've heard controller type DJs that they are so concerned with a controller that it's a crutch.
Wow.
It's really a crutch.
Well, as an aside, I'm a long-time Tractor user myself.
Yeah.
That's my preference. But you know, I can play on just about anything.
Cool.
But I do remember, research, ladies and gentlemen, research. I remember that they had the what you call it, the turntables that would, drop, but sometimes they drop more than one record.
Yeah, they sure did. They sure did.
Or the middle disc would fall out.
Yup, and it'd be a wrap. Yep.
But you only know about this from research, ladies and
Yeah, you heard.
I heard, that's right. What about this? If you had to give an artist, a DJ, whatever, anybody involved with music, a great big hug and say, listen, don't do that. What do you see? What do you see like maybe the 2 or 3 biggest mistakes that you see made all the time?
But from who? From DJs or producers?
From DJs. No, I'm sorry. From producers and or DJs, and it could be like from the actual application of making music or making to actually doing the business of it. So.
Okay, so that's a lot. So
Okay.
let me go with the first piece. So as a producer, again, I'm talking about my own experience and then sharing with my peers.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the big mistakes is mixing records too loud. Sometimes we get stuck on 0. We think in our mixing somehow we have to be really loud, so we'll be here, we'll turn it up. Actually, I learned through Johnny Dangerous, shout out to Johnny Dangerous, years ago that, well actually no, let me be more truthful. More recently he told me this, that you should mix your records more lower in volume initially. And when I did that, the dynamics in the music came out a lot more. And what I mean by dynamics is that you want to hear that left and right, the high, middle, bottom, the strings sweeping in and out. You don't want it all crushed together in a sound. So on the production tip, I learned to mix your records lower in volume, and then when you master them to the right volume, and it'll be just beautiful. The other thing is to not be lazy. I noticed that some of my producer friends will take a simple loop and add a beat, and that's kind of it. And I have to learn that too, because sometimes it wasn't that I was lazy. I was thinking more like, wow, I'm making a record. And you have to get over the starstruck feeling of yourself, hearing yourself back, hearing your work back, because you will mess around and make a and depending on how you do it, you'll be like, that is the hottest beat ever, man. I can put it out right now. And you don't realize that you're so gassed by being able to produce that you haven't really finished the record at all. It actually even hasn't started, but in your mind, you did that boom, boom, and you think, I'm good now. So you have to learn to be hard on yourself in terms of wanting to really bring up that quality, put those 10,000 hours in so you know. I spent years pushing buttons and I got the sound I wanted, but I didn't know that it was compression. I didn't know it was reverb. I didn't know it was, and until I went back to school. So my other thing is, go to school. I know people say, oh, you don't have to do anything. You can pursue a certificate program, nighttime, weekends, do something so that you understand why those buttons do what they do. So I went to a small liberal arts college and studied music tech. So I did Pro Tools, Ableton, Reason. We learned how to sync video to film. So I got into folios, all that stuff. So that's important. And so I think a lot of it is that practice and talking to others, man. A lot of times we work in silos, so we don't actually get best practices from one another because we're too busy trying to put out records. Like, yeah, you're doing it, but you're not talking to each other, so you don't know that your record sounds distorted because you're just in your zone, or you don't know that that was off key because you're just into the wow, I got a record, you know. That's hard though. It's hard to edit yourself. That's the last point, is edit yourself at the end. So oftentimes we put too much in the music. When we start to take away, it actually sounds much better and more open. When we try to do too much, you got strings and crashes and this and chords and all. Start to take away at the end and see what that might sound like, you know? So that's on the music tip, on the production tip.
How about artists?
Yeah, what are some of the mistakes?
Yeah,
I think we're talking about business. Now this is my big thing about artists that, the artists that I'm involved with or I know of, that I should preface it by saying that they most of the time don't have a clue about their business. They don't know how their royalties are paid, how much they should get. They don't know what to do when the record's actually out. You know what, I learned this through, it's an Indigo Girls song, folk group. The hardest to learn was the least complicated. And what I mean by that is we put so much stress into the record itself, putting it out, the artwork cover and your makeup and beat your face and the outfit and all. But when it's out, it's actually when the work begins. The work actually hasn't started for you until that record's out. Why? Because if you're not careful, putting out music these days is like putting up paint on the wall. I mean, watch it go down, move down real slowly. And all we're doing is going around, wow, that's a cool yellow, man. That's coming down that wall, kind of cool. But our job is to not watch it go down that wall. Our job as artists now, we're pretending we're putting out records, right? moment that's out, you have to plan your brand. You have to plan. So the moment, even before it's out, you should be doing a lead up to it. Hey, everybody, record's dropping in 7 days. Hey, I wrote this verse because my father died, and I want to talk about that, okay? I sang it this way because I was scared that day, I had a cold. All that stuff these days, sharing is caring, and it adds value to your bottom line. So when the record comes out, you should have a plan. What is that plan? You should be thinking about things in 3 categories. You should be thinking about what gig opportunities can I get from this release? And that's up to you, because everybody's success definition is different, right? For one, it could be, I've always just wanted to kill an open mic. Okay. So if you put that record out, what process have you taken since it's been out to get to that open mic, right? Same applies with the second piece, which is radio coverage. So did you call Dan Shiver and tell him you got a record coming out? You need to do an interview so that he can take you, videotape you, and then you can share those links and say, pick up my new single. I just did an interview where I promoted it, right? So radio interview opportunities. The last is write-ups. You should be hitting up, okay, wow, maybe I should hit up Michael Fasati at Soulful House and see if we will review the new single. All right, can I get in contact with a Billboard reporter? Or is there somebody else that's doing blogs that maybe would, post about my record, review all of those things, those 3 categories are very important when the record comes out. The idea, it doesn't work out perfectly, but if you could, have it so that, okay, my record just came out, and now you can see me on Dan Shiver's show, I'm doing TR show, Adam Cruz Freedom Radio Hour, and I'm going to be on the Lincoln Park stage, so I'm performing there, I'm going to be at Soul Summit, and then check me out. So that's what the name of the game is. So artists, what mistakes do they make? They don't think about things in those ways. They think, the record's out, how come nobody playing my record? And I dealt with that. I'm like, I'm 3 albums in, I'm working on my 4th album, I'm like, how come people are like, you sing? I'm like, oh my God. But you know what? That's information for me to take. You know what's the information? Do different than what you're doing to spread the word. Do different than what you're doing to spread the word. Doesn't mean that what you're doing isn't working, it's not getting you to that, wherever it is for you. Again, that's up to you, right? You steer the ship.
Well, to that point, a lot of people think that the song's not being played because DJs don't play their songs, they're only playing their own stuff. They, maybe they have something against them. When a lot of it, from what you're saying, is that when you get the fact that you put the music out is good for you. But now you gotta work.
Yeah. And
you gotta go, and you gotta pump, you gotta push, and you gotta show up, and you gotta handle a lot of rejection, you gotta have people not feeling, not checking for you. Yeah. And you gotta still keep, but you are in the marketing, and from my perspective, my background is sales and marketing. I've done that most of my life. So and I'm hearing you say, you're not necessarily only in the business of making that song, you're in the business of selling and marketing that. Am I reading that right?
Yes, and more. Yes, that's very important. And more specifically, like I talk about in the book, there's these 2 concepts that every artist should be doing, whether you're an artist, a DJ, promoter, whatever. You should be pairing and windowing.
Okay, explain that.
Okay, so if you're an artist, what I mean by windowing is you need to do your homework and say, okay, when I put out a record, what is the most action I get? Is it what website? Is it when I do it on Bandcamp? Is it TrackSource? Is it Beatport? Is it iTunes? Where is it that I get a lot of the action from? And then that becomes number 1 on the list of what you put out first. So now I'm going to put it, I know if I put it on danshiver.com, most people go there first. So I'm going to put my record out there first. Then I'm going to window by putting, after a spell, you decide, okay, I think I'm going to give that 2 weeks, 4 weeks. You're going to window it to the next thing. So you go the same math. Right. What brings the biggest return on the next site? It might be my own, it might be TrackSource, it might be iTunes. And you keep doing that. And that's what you're going to do by window. You're going to put it out on this day, 3 weeks later on this site only. 3 weeks later, you put it on this other site. A month later, maybe you put them on all sites. So that's windowing. The second thing is pairing. So you no longer, if you're an artist, stop putting out records just to put it out. Pairing means pairing it with some purpose. So an example of that is come check out my new single. I'm celebrating it at the Newark Public Library on Friday. So you come to my party, and I'm rocking my new records, and I'll mess around and I'll sing the record too. You see? So right now I'm doing that same process with a record I'm about to release called Happiness. So what I do is I use my platforms to test the song, gauge opinions about it. I'm teasing them with it. It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And then when I'm about to release it, I'm gonna go, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And then on the day it comes out, if I can, it's not perfect, but I try to have it out on a monumental day. My birthday. Maybe I'm going to do an interview with Dan Shiver that day. That's the day it'll come out. You know. Okay. I'm about to DJ at Lincoln Park. Okay, so the day I do, okay, I'll drop the album. Boom. Now, take album and music out for a second. Replace it with what you like. A book. Right. A T-shirt. Cologne. Sneakers. Hats. We're very creative in our community. If you go around to these local events, especially around the New Jersey area and throughout the summer, you will come across a lot of fabulous street vendors. They're selling all kinds of things all summer long. So I'm saying, find that for you, because when you pair it with a purpose, you start to get more action around it. Because now it's celebration time. Oh, Dan's new single's out. Okay, let's all show up at the library because Dan's about to play that record, right? And you do that on and on and on. And that's called planning for your brand. So the other thing I want to talk about, I think is very important. A lot of times we waste our times trying to wait for the opportunity. So we're waiting for Dan to call us to say, when are you going to have me on the show? We're waiting for Louis Vega to invite us to play at Expansions or Roots. Let's just say, right? We're looking for Josh Milan to invite us into the studio to record the next Your Body, right? What we're not doing in that moment is hustling up our own opportunity. It's actually a huge Achilles heel for artists because we all we want to do is be acknowledged and share our art. But the worst feeling is feeling like no one's paying attention. You're working in the dark. So I would say make your own opportunity. And it's a cliche, but it's true. So the Newark Library was a make your own opportunity.
That's a perfect segue into this. You talk about the 10,000. Now, by the way, there was a guy by the name of Malcolm Gladwell who really made that concept. Made that concept really, really popular. But you mentioned the library. Tell us about the library because I was there, for example, as you know, I was there Friday night. Don Tone was there. I mean, I don't know, 500-600 people, maybe more. Listen, Friday nights, Newark Public Library. I mean, they have it popping.
Thank you so much. So this is our third summer doing the library. How did it start? I started a radio station with my partner, Drews Martinez, Rafi Boyd Muniz, and Silla BK. The two of them went on, and producer and I continued, and we're always doing the same thing, which is pairing our events with a purpose. We're very into community outreach, so we do a lot of events in and around the city of Newark, where we will do some community aspect. For example, we've hosted voter registration drives. We've hosted when Hurricane Maria hit, we had a hurricane relief effort. So we were a drop-off location at the library. Most Fridays, not every Friday, we invite the medical mobile unit for the city of Newark. They come with a huge Winnebago and they provide free health screenings, blood pressure, blood glucose, and HIV. And why do we do that? Because I am tired of seeing my brothers and sisters perish from complications of heart disease and diabetes, which is our biggest killer in our community, and we do very little about it. I was friends with Camacho. I watched him become an amputee and then deteriorate from there. I watched Frankie Knuckles also and become an amputee and deteriorate from there. I can go on and on. Within my own family, diabetes has stricken our family very profoundly. So I think it's important that our brothers and sisters know what their blood glucose levels are, blood pressure, and HIV status. We offer that for free. So we do a lot of, so out of that effort, we were involved with Newark Museum. We've done things with that. So all of this was this natural progression, and then out of that, Jeffrey Trezak, who is the executive director of the library, had us in to discuss how we're going to continue this community effort at the library. So in other words, the opportunity came because of our work chipping away at these endeavors. How do we party with a purpose? How do we, we're walking for the domestic violence walk. Okay, how do we get our programmers, and then we built to 35 programmers, and they all have various initiatives they work on. So I think that's how the library happened. We started small, we had about 50, 60 people, you know, and that first summer, and then the next summer was more like maybe 200 people, you know, and now we average, I mean, they've started to get involved with wristbands, and we're at 1,500 to 2,000 on some Fridays. So now this last Friday, because of that 100-degree weather, we were more like 500, 600. But all of us suffered in terms of numbers because it was just too hot. But normally, we're at like 1,500 people now, which is a huge accomplishment.
Wow.
And so now it becomes, like you just said with the records, right? That's beautiful. What do you do now?
Okay.
So what do we do is community. That's our thing, community.
Okay. Wow. So, wow. Now that goes to when?
Okay, so that goes until Labor Day. It starts Memorial Day. It's every Friday, weather permitting. And then we have an after party around the corner, so we can continue the festivities until about 2 o'clock in the morning. That's at 27 Mix, located at 27 Halsey Street. That starts at around 10:30, and then we all mosey down after we break down and do our thing too.
Let's talk about collaborations.
Yes.
Who are some of the people that you've worked with, whether it's DJs, whether it's producers, whether it's events? Who are some of the people that you've worked with? And then the other question is there anybody on your bucket list that maybe you haven't gotten to work with?
Okay, so you want to know who I've worked with in the...
Yeah, who are some of the people that you've worked with, whether it's producers,
Okay, so...
DJ, whatever, okay.
Okay, no worries. All right, so I've had a bit of a past. All right, so my first record label, I was production assistant at Maud Records. So I worked with Louis Vega and Kenny Dope Gonzalez.
Okay.
That was my very first label.
Okay.
Then I worked at West End, and I worked for Kevin Hedge, who's on WBLS, formerly one half of Blaze. Shout out to you, Kevin Hedge. I worked with Mel Sharon, who's called the Godfather of Disco. He started West End Records.
Sure, I know you're talking about. Matter of fact, on YouTube, they did a thing with that.
Oh, yes. So I associate produced a documentary about the life of Mel Sharon. That's what you're probably talking about.
Okay, yeah. He's sitting in a chair like that?
Yeah, it's called Keep On Dancing.
Okay, all right, okay.
And that was based on his autobiography. So those are the people I work with, Kenny Nicks, you know, people that are involved with West End. And then afterwards, it was really getting involved with various labels. I started distributing other labels, like Soul Groove Records, so shout out to Shahir Williams and Derek Jenkins. And then I started Honeycomb with Josh Milan, and so that's been 9 years in operation. And who else am I collaborating with? Eddie Nicholas. We've done over 12.5 songs already. My sister Flora Cruz, Manchild Black, who's now touring the world. So just a lot of wonderful things. Now, present collaborations, DWAP Music Radio that you'd like to know about.
Right.
But I've been wanting to tell you about the following, which is a new collaboration with the Lincoln Park Coast Cultural District. They do for 14 years the Lincoln Park Music Festival.
Yes, Saturday.
Yep. So they have 3 days. They have the first day, which is jazz and gospel, the second day, which is house, and Sunday, the third day, is hip hop. So after 14 years, I was able to meet with them and their team, and really I used the book and leveraged the book into a one-day music conference. Because all I want to do is take this opportunity, like what we're doing now, to do it in a setting where we all can benefit. So I wrote a grant through the Newark Arts. I got a grant from that, and then started collaborating. So now we have a keynote speaker. It's set for Thursday, August 1st at the Newark Public Library. It's a preview of a 2020 conference we're putting together, so you can get a sneak peek of what it'll be like. Our keynote speaker is Mike Weiss from Nervous Records.
Okay, sure.
So shout out to Mike Weiss. We're having a financial literacy workshops, so you can understand how to better manage your royalties. We're hosting an artist wellness forum, so we can talk about how to get our artists to get medical coverage, which is plaguing our industry. Too many of us are putting up GoFundMes for dealing with hospital expenses or the unfortunate passing of one another, and there's no life insurance. So we're going to be addressing all of those issues, and then we'll have a lunchtime discussion around brand management and that hustle effect. We call it the Nipsey Hussle effect. So Nipsey Hussle was a just very famous MC rapper, but also an altruistic person, a community-oriented person that really knew how to leverage his profits into community activism. He was the kind of guy that would hire folks coming out of incarceration when they couldn't get a job elsewhere. He really was homegrown in his efforts to better the rates of unemployment in his community. So we're taking that Nipsey Hustle energy and
Mm-hmm.
we're calling it the Nipsey Hustle effect. And basically, how do you hustle up this money? How do you make it work? We talk about pairing, windowing, you know.
You know, I went to the event that they had for Colonel Eagles. I
Yes.
remember him. I was in New York, and all the who's who of club music and house music, and you going back to the classics, all came out for him. But to your point, the sad part about it is this man's music is still being played worldwide. He had a tremendous impact, but in the end, there was nothing there in terms of his ability to, I guess, his health care, between that and how he was living and things of that nature. He was just, and there's a lot to be said for something like that. Let me ask you another question. You know, so I've done some level of study, and I found out the average age in the Soulful House community is 51 years old.
Okay.
Average income per person is $56,000 a year. So you have in that situation many people who have six-figure income households. Okay, here's my question, and I don't know if you addressed it or whatever, and I've been getting the word out and saying it, is where, like for example, we were at the Bang Out.
Yeah.
Okay. They said 40,000 people came out. All right, that's the announcement stage. You know, I didn't see one car company there. How come we're buying, listen, most people drove there. I saw nobody out there who was making auto loans. No insurance people. No, you want to talk about equipment? Where was Pioneer? Ray, all the companies that make equipment and gear. How come in my mind, the Soulful House community is kind of ignored, not paid attention to, or whatever? I mean, I don't know if you ever thought about it.
Absolutely.
But what's your sense of that?
I think, I have a lot of viewpoints. Let's go very basic. I went to the Chosen Few picnic, which is in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
It happens every year. It's been happening for years.
Mm-hmm.
They have a paywall, so you can't get access to the park without having paid your fee, $40, whatever the fee is, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of our Jersey diehard Soulful House heads say some variation of the following. Y'all need to take a cue from Chosen Few and figure out how to charge these people cover. Right. So when you make, if you listen, Adam, you do in the library, let me tell you, I never got opinions until now that we have a successful party.
Right.
Now the opinions are fast and furious. Nobody said a thing to us 2 summers, 1 summer ago. Now it's the opinions are coming out, and that's a testament to the success and awareness that it's built. But I want to talk about this. I want us to get out of some of the old school models for making income. The notion of cover charge might work for Chicago, and it's been working beautifully. But the other thing, to your very point, not only are they charging a cover charge, but you see these sponsors are very present. Go to Lincoln Park. Those signs that are taking up the stages to the left or right are up for a reason. They contain a ton of logos for folks that are sponsoring these events. Why do I say it that way? Because I want us to, yes, we need to figure out how to make more income, right? But we have to get out these traditional models of making income as it relates to nightlife or as it relates to Soulful House. I put the following in that category: cover charges, drinking, the way you set up the club. When you come in, the notion of a wooden floor with some lights and a DJ and then let's party, all of that stuff, it went out with the 70s and 80s.
Okay.
And what I'm saying is, what you're experiencing and feeling is us trying to apply formulas from yesteryear in a near 2020 year. In the year 2020 right now, we're applying old methods of income, old business models that just don't work. It's like putting square in a round, right. Square in a round. You know what I'm talking about? It doesn't fit anymore, and we're aggravated. And I argue as a community because we're saying in Jersey, all these parties, but ask them to pay $5. I bet you they won't. I'm saying let's stop asking for a dollar amount like that. Do it a different way. How do you do it a different way? Okay, well there's a bunch of ways. You know, there's things like pay ahead of time a certain number of income that will give you access to all of the parks, right? That's one way to do it, okay? The other thing is keep it free. But what you do is you put, because let's be honest, the city enjoys, if you do it right, the city enjoys the benefit of the large number of people because they need to eat somewhere. They need to go somewhere to buy whatever products they need to keep them going throughout the day. So the idea is creating creative economy around the areas where these functions happen so that income is being driven up in those local municipalities because those local municipalities are the true benefactors and a lot of what you're seeing in these larger parks. They're county-run parks with county-run money. Every year they're spending for various things. So what you might be experiencing is the county stepping up, fiscally speaking, to provide the apparatus for this to continue. Now, let's put that aside for a second. You make a very valid point. We should all be thinking about it. In order to put this music conference on, I hit up people like Dropbox, Shure, Pioneer. I mean, I can go on and on. I mean, not everybody gets back to you, but you try. And what you're trying to do is say, can you either give some nominal, some monetary sponsorship dollar, or can you give equipment? You know, so I think the answer to this is finding a balance, but also pushing towards progress so that we get rid of old methods for making income. The business model just does not apply for today. Now, if it works in Chicago, that's great. But Chicago, like in any other city where they're having large attendance at these festivals, are always going to deal with this quagmire over time. Over the years, what works now may not work over the years. You know what I'm saying? We are, as a society, we are in the grips of losing cash. We're going to get to a cashless society eventually. So the notion of cover charges is a little bit out the window. You know what I'm saying? So we got to think about that. You know, more than half of the world is unbanked. They don't even have bank accounts. So you got to think about where the future of this is going. You know, I think we don't spend enough time cultivating the young people. That's really going to be the problem. It's less about, yes, it is about the old business models, but it's also about the lack of engaging of the community that happens. That's why at the library we try to get your screen. We see kids, we try to bring them all together, man, because it's too easy to put those speakers up and party. We can party all day, but what do you do with that? Like to your point, why can't you get a screening? Why can't you figure out your HIV status, stand up in that park? Why can't you apply for an auto loan or get information about home equity loans or home ownership or renting in the area? All these things you can do. That's not food and music. That's what you see now. You see mostly vendors selling you food and then the music.
Well, you know, at one point I was having conversations with people who make mortgages.
Yes.
And I'm in conversation with some banks now, by the way, and it's very interesting because, you know, they said to me in the beginning, they said, you know, well, the people are partying, they don't want to talk about mortgages and stuff like that. I said, no, I think I tell you something that's very, very unfair. I said, because you'll spend millions on NFL games, baseball games, soccer games, whatever. Now, how many people are going to leave the stands and go up into the concession stands? I need to put a car application in. They don't do that. They don't say, "Oh, let me get an insurance plan here." They don't do that.
Right.
Or let me sign up for Mercedes. They don't do that. You know, they put it in their mind. So, but they don't have. So now, it's very unfair to say, "Hey, listen, I'm going to leave this party, and the guy standing over there, let me put an application in for a loan." No. You have a conversation, change car, but at the same time.
But it starts.
It starts a conversation.
Right.
You start a conversation. So again. By the way, if anybody is interested in testing this audience, and I said this thing last Wednesday, was on Jay Perez's show. I said, you contact me. I said, because let me tell you something. First of all, we have value as an audience.
Yes.
Let's start right there. We spend a lot of money on a lot of things. We have disposable income. We travel. We have, hey, listen, say it again, not for me, but hey, listen, AARP, where are you? Some of you already got your cards or your letters. I mean, there's all these different things that they're not looking at us as a viable opportunity. Again, I'd like to have it. Let's say maybe you work, and a lot of the people that are in our community are supervisors, managers, don't own businesses, whatever, well, they should be having conversations with people about all the stuff that we're consuming. And
yeah, I also want to say this. I also feel like it's not just a conversation. It's the quality of conversation. Because I noticed that sometimes we get stuck in this vortex of woe is me, how it used to be.
Oh, yes, yeah.
This stinks, that stinks. People don't do this, they'll backstab, and all that may be true. But in that throes of that conversation, there's no progress. In other words, we don't leave that conversation with an action plan and go, we're going to do this. No, all we do is commiserate. All we do is we go around that hamster wheel talking about how it used to be. So when I talk about let's get rid of old business models, I meant like what happens if a lot of us like CDs, right? Let's say instead, I'm just giving you a pretend price. Let's say instead of $5 for that CD, it costs $10. Okay, you got the CD, but now you got access to the party right away. So now it's not cover charge, right? You just buy my book, and then you bring your book, and now you're into the party for free.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? The other thing we got to think other ways, like look at what the Global Citizen concert did. Global Citizen said, you want to get up front to watch Beyonce? We don't want your money. We want your community service. The more you did, they set it up so there was a community service exercises throughout the area where the concert was held. And the more community service you did, the more points you got, which meant you got close. So the Beehive was out there cleaning the graffiti off or whatever they had to do to get the right amount of points. Look, you have to look at what some of those artists are doing because they're really taking this to the next level. Look at what Taylor Swift is doing. Taylor Swift wants you to buy into subscription for her. So you pay per month and you'll get a concert ticket when it comes out in your area. You get the new Taylor Swift perfume. You get the meet and greet. All of that for subscription. I think, and house music, that's an easy thing. I'm working on this now to develop a business model that's around subscription. So let's say for Josh Milan, we're trying to work on this for Honeycomb. If you paid a certain price per month, but you knew that he wasn't going to put it out anywhere. In other words, it wasn't available on all the other sites. It was only available there. It was versions you were never going to get. It was stuff you were never going to get anywhere else. Would you pay a per month rate like we pay for Spotify or something? Right. And how much would you pay? Now, we're talking about every month straight. So let's go back to the chosen few. Forget the $40 cover charge. What if we got you to pay $40 a month? Okay. So now, you see what I'm saying?
Well, let me just tell you one of the things that's happening right now in the Soulful House community. So I'm having conversation with Sultan at SMB Entertainment Group, and what he's doing now, we've been talking back and forth with it, but we've actually gotten, so he's doing a survey, and he's also gathering services, and as we speak, we're going around and trying to find different services. So he's got a membership thing going on. So right now, you can go to his site and become a member of the SMBNT group. So what that will get you in the beginning, it's going to let you know when things are happening, whatsoever. But that subscription model is very, very powerful. Netflix, okay? Netflix, Spotify, Hulu, starts with a P, Pandora. I mean, you can go on and on and on. That's something, again, you talk about changing the business model. If you go on the internet, you can sign up. They have a thing called freemium. Yeah. So you sign up, and it's free, and you'll get a certain amount of stuff up front, and then you'll get stuff off. Well, that business model is really not brand new, but at the same time, like remember in the old days, and I know from research, ladies and gentlemen, I wasn't there, but back in the day, what are you laughing?
When you have to preface it like, I heard.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah. Anyway, back in the day, you used to have the book club, 10 books for $1.
Yeah.
Well, and then you had the other thing you had was like 10 CDs or 10 records.
Columbia House.
Like Columbia House and BMG, whatever. But the point is that you would get X amount up front, and then every month they start hitting your credit card. Boom, 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 until you stop. So I think, again, you're right. We got to look at different business models. Let's say, now here's something else too. We just want to share this thought. So let's say you have 40,000 people come out to the bang out over those 2 days. And let's say, you know what, we're charging $10, that's it. We're going to pay $10, that's it. Now, if we're not coming, I'm not paying a dime. Are you kidding me? And 10,000 paid $10. That's $100,000. All right. Now, 40,000 people came, nobody paid a dime, no money made. So the question becomes, would I rather have the 10,000 pay me $10 or the 40,000 pay me nothing? Well, I'm gonna go with the 10 grand. But now here's what it does. Now some people, wow, how come he gonna take my money? Yeah. If I get money, first of all, I'm putting out a service. Hey, how come I can't get paid? Number one. But number two is that if that promoter, and most of the promoters, I mean, if we keep it real, don't make a lot of money if they make any money at all. And they're coming to really, it's cash intensive. Like I said, I was saying before, they didn't make a statue to these guys. And I'm saying you too. Because listen, it's to put these things together, there's meetings, there's running around, there's email, there's organizing, coordinating people, negotiating. I mean, it's cash intensive. I mean, this stuff is soul crushing. And to quote another gentleman out there, he said, wait a minute, don't tell people I'm losing my mind in the process.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it takes a lot. So why can't they get paid? All right, but the other thing too is now, if you're getting paid, it puts you in a position to do bigger and better things. If you got money coming in. I mean,
yeah, I agree. You're on the bare bones of it. You're absolutely right. I'd rather the $100,000 than no money at all for the 40,000 people, right? But I say this. I challenge you to think of it totally differently. I'd rather get something from all 40,000 people than only the $10 from the 10,000. In other words, how would I do that? Well, we do the same kind of idea. So maybe they're buying something that they want, but it's a price that from that price you make a per person income as cover. It's not called cover. It's not called. Why can't they? Because now you remove that. I want to give them my $5 because they got what they wanted. You got to give them what they want. In our world, they might be CDs. Like you said, our median age is 51. That means they still CD users, right? So that might be the move for you. If it's not the move, your job is to do the hours to figure out what it is that motivates your people to buy something from you. That's not music. Because the unfortunate thing, going back to your NFL analogy, we've unfortunately put music in the kind of box that could be either very valuable to you or not have any impact in your life at all. We fall into these categories. I don't know about you, but I need music on all the day. It's on the background. I'm intentionally listening, or I need something. Even the shows I watch need to have dope soundtracks. You know what I'm saying? Because I need it. It permeates my life. But when I was doing some interviews for my book, I came across interviewers who were like, I don't mess with any Spotify. I have Spotify, but I don't do that. It's not even so you have to appreciate your audience, right? So if you're trying to go, man, you need music in your life, that's actually the wrong argument to have. You got to figure out, what is it? Oh, I noticed you have headphones. You really like headphones. What if I told you, if you bought my headphones, you get my headphones, and you get access to my parties, or you go on tour with me, or you get my shirt, now we're doing it differently. I'm looking to find what you want, what you have anyway. Oh, pens. My pen says. And I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm just saying what I'm noticing. Give the people what they want, and then they'll pay you. There's never that, hey, want? No, because they want what you're selling. Right? And you're not saying the words cover charge or support me. I have a big problem sometimes with that word support because it gives like a begging kind of feeling. Like we also supposed to oblige each other. Let me click it because Dan put it out. No, you should patronize the small business. Patronizing means you wanted that product, whether it's music, whatever it is, and you decided to click and buy or order whatever you do. I'd rather you patronize our businesses in Soulful House instead of going support the artist, because you're not really supporting the artist. Why? Because we're not making a livable wage.
At that,
Not at that level. So you're not really supporting me. You're supporting my idea, correct, but you're patronizing my business. You see the difference there?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. I'm trying to work on that myself.
Wow. Well, listen, we've covered a lot of ground in a short period of time.
Did we? I didn't know the time. I love talking to you.
Well, listen, we are getting down to the wire here. Any final thoughts that you want us to come away, and maybe we didn't. Oh, wait. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference for? You've got like husband, father. Different hats, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Okay. Writer, producer, author. So, anyway, do you have a prep? Is there any of them that you feel like you love the most?
I tell you, my number one love is creation.
Okay,
So,
great.
you know what I'm saying? Like,
Okay.
really, my number one thing is to create. I love to create good relationships. I love to create good collaborations. I love to create good music. I love to sing, and I love to create. So, I can't say, it's like children. You can't say you love them more than because you really do love them. You really need that experience of just having and I'm a person that loves a lot of things, man. I don't like just one thing. I'm a person that like a lot of different things. So, I think my life is really about, I'm trying to live my life like I'm going to die. I know that sounds weird and morbid, but I don't mean it literally. I mean it like, if I only knew this morning that I'm not going to make it by midnight, what would I do? And I'm trying to do that. So the music conference, you can register at mixtapesessions.com. It's another step in the book, which was a step from the music, which was a step from the DJ, which was a step from singing. So all of this is steps, man. And sticking to it, having that level of hyper-focus, so important. For writing a book, hyper-focus. You got to write a lot. And the other two things about this book that I really want to drive home is the importance of editing and the importance of finding a good artwork designer. Because even though I do graphic design, I on purpose did not want to take on that for my book because I only wanted to focus on writing. So I got an amazing editor, Amanda Fontani. She's a English teacher out of Medgar Evers in Brooklyn, so shout out to Amanda, prima, I call her, cousin in Spanish. She's an amazing editor, so she knew how to, sometimes editors will make you sound not like you, and she was able to keep my voice while just helping you get the right idea out, right? And then you need a good designer to help you make it look dope. So I hooked up with Jose Gonzalez. Jose Gonzalez is a producer. He's done work with Sulfuric and Brian Tappert, but he's an amazing graphic designer doing work for all of them. Kenny Dope, that's how we know each other. We're fellow graphic designers. So I was like, Jose, would you hook me up? I need to know. Would you work with me? And he said, absolutely. And I gave him this vision, and it was really the storefront, the demolishment of the storefront that we all knew and loved. And the back is the back of it, the back of the storefront. So he really captured that beautifully. So Amanda Fontani, Jose Gonzalez, and therapy. I cannot stress enough the importance of weekly therapy because you're swimming around in these ideas, and you need therapy to help you navigate what it feels like to do it because it's very vulnerable feeling. Also, your closest people will shade you, and it's not about them. It's about you're triggering their life goals. You're triggering their life goals. People always want to have that one song out, that poetry, that poem, that book, that acting scene. People want to create or leave a mark in some way. And when you're constantly putting out stuff, have a lot of output, you're going to get people that are proud of you, but you're also going to get people that don't know how to deal with it because it triggers something in them. Oh, I've had that book in my heart. Here he comes with his book. But it's really about hyper-focus, needing support. I couldn't have done it without good support from my family. My wife would take my kids out to the country so I could have the day. That's beautiful. You know how rare that is to find a mate that's willing to say, you know what, we're going to go out for the day, you good. Or I'll put in the bed, you keep writing. Or we were supposed to have our date night. I said, can we switch that to tomorrow so I can finish this thought? That's very important. So shout out to Sarah Cruz, my beautiful wife.
Your book. Let's take a few minutes with it as we continue, and I guess we're getting down to the wire here, but I really want to take your book, and I want you to just explain the concept of the book, and why people should get it, because how it's going to help them. So I had a chance to browse through, but I need your perspective.
Okay, great. So thank you for that question. So the book is essentially my experience of working at West End Records, giving you that disco label experience. But it was really about what happened in music when it became digital. So I chronicle the steps, how bootlegging changed over the years, how the way we consume music changed over the years, how we allowed corporate companies like Apple to dictate how we were going to consume music and how it was going to be priced. So the book is about that. The book also talks about freemium and what that was, which is essentially a great sales gimmick to get you hooked on accessing that product. Not unlike a drug dealer, you know, they might give you that first hit, that first taste for free. That's what it was. And freemium is really free and premium mixed together. Premium means pay. You're going to pay now for full access, right? Freemium is limited access or just for a limited amount of time, right? So we talked about freemium, but I also talked about what artists did to try to buck the system and how it worked for some of them. I talk about Prince, and he was a pioneer in working with UK tabloid papers, and he would stick his CD in. So every time you bought a copy of that paper, you bought his copy. So now that changed Nielsen scans, because now he was selling millions of copies of a CD just by virtue of allowing it to be circulated within a British tabloid. So now we're taking, see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now you're not going, I want to buy Prince's CD.
Right.
I want to buy that. I want to buy the Daily Beast or the Sun or whatever it was called. I think it was called Daily Mail. And so they bought it and it was already in there. So he could tabulate it as a sale. So can we apply? I'm saying apply that to house music. Same thing. You know what I'm saying? I talk about net neutrality, which
that's
is
a
very,
big thing.
very important.
A lot of people not even aware that happened.
Yeah, so net neutrality in short is how there was an agreement with all of our telecom companies that said we are to treat data equally. What does that mean? That no matter how much money you paid or how little money you paid for internet access, when you got up and you accessed that page, it loaded and unloaded, and similarly for everyone, right? But that changed now with the repeal of net neutrality, because now telecom companies could engage in a few things. Throttling, which is slowing down dance stuff, and TR stuff gets sped up because we got to deal with TR.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure.
Or blocking. Oh, because we have a deal with TR, you can only access TR.com. But you can't, when you try to get danshiver.com, you won't get access at all. Or it would be so slow that you grow disinterested, right? So throttling, blocking, that kind of thing happened now with the repeal of net neutrality. So, and that really messed us up, because in rural communities where they don't have the type of bandwidth or resources to keep up their infrastructure, they rely on the government to supply what's called a lifeline program. That's funds they do to help try to deal with the technology highway in rural communities. And that's mostly our poor brown and black brothers and sisters that are dealing with the struggle of not having information easily accessible as their cosmopolitan counterparts. So the lifeline program was basically demolished, so there was no more funds given to rural communities. So now their bandwidth and their speed at which they're allowed to access the internet is basically creates a bottleneck of information, so it's really slow to access. And all they say is, oh well, pay more and you get faster internet.
Right.
So we go, wait a minute, we've dealt with this before. Remember dial-up?
Yeah.
And you had that, and then we got DSL. That was fast. What's the difference? Well, this was packages you could buy, right? The difference is now everything's up for grabs. Then the speed in which we access things, now we have fast lanes and slow lanes. It never was like that before. So I talk about that in the book. And I talk about just the importance of knowing your business, how the money flows. In the end of the book, I talk about the streaming rates. So if you want to know, okay, so which of these streaming companies should I really listen to if they're going to be paying so little to the artist? They pay a fraction of a penny per stream. So you don't get a full penny every time you listen to my song. You have to listen to my song thousands and thousands of times for me to get it. $100, $200. That's why you see stories like Pharrell Williams. He sued YouTube because he got like a $9,600 check. I'm telling you the wrong figure. I forget the figure. $9,600 for millions and millions and millions and millions of streams of Happy. It's one of his biggest records ever. So he's like, how come YouTube just cut me this check for $9,600? You bugging. Sue them because you want to know auditing, you want to see the books. How did you arrive at this figure? And it's because they pay out a fraction of a penny per stream. Let me give you the figure so you know. So they pay 0.00074 cents per stream. Yep. And the highest payout, 0.01284 per stream. That's Tidal. That's owned by Jay-Z.
Yeah,
right? So even still, if you want to talk about, okay, what's the biggest payout for artists, let me be supportive of that. Well, perhaps Tidal might be your thing, but just so you know, they're making billions and billions of dollars off the back of the music. They need the music to build their conglomerate, but once they build it, they put it to the side I use the analogy of it's now the lighter that's sold at a counter at a bodega or a little quickie mart. You know, the lighter's important. You need it in the store because people always ask for lighters, right? But it's a small margin of their total income now. But they needed that to launch the business. You see, Apple couldn't launch iTunes without music.
Right.
Just like Netflix couldn't launch without film.
Right.
So what's happening now, the devaluation of music, that's what this is about. You can experience that in other mediums. Film, already, all you can watch for $10 a month.
Right, Netflix.
What do you think is going to happen for big blockbuster films? People are going to movies less and less. That's why now in the movies you have a dine-in experience because they need to make other money because the movie money is drying up. So now you get the lounge.
Yeah.
You can get Spritz Scampi with beer now, and you're like, whoa, this is awesome. That's because they can't continue. Theaters cannot survive off income from movies alone. Same thing with music. Same thing with news. News is dealing with a big issue because now people don't click through to read an article. All they're interested in the headline and there's previews. It's called the preview. So it tells you a little bit about the article before you click through. So what there's news agencies are tanking in terms of advertising income because people are not clicking through, which makes them money. So now they're trying to ban the ability to preview so that you're forced to click through because they need their money back. Same thing in music.
Wow.
So what is the takeaway from the book? Learn how it all relates. And this is not a macabre book. I find this to be quite pessimistic because I also talk about what you can do. Pairing, windowing. You need to get out there and tour more. You need to talk more. You need to evolve yourself. You need to make your own opportunity. So maybe TR needs to have like an all-women's support group to support what she's talking about. For example, you know, you have your single. Maybe you need to have, let me do an artist showcase where I know I'm one of the artists. And let's put up Adam and Eddie. And that's what I'm doing right now. The music conference is going to be during the day. At night, I'm working with Hutch and his crew at Washington Park Sessions to do an artist showcase afterwards because I see the importance of let's come together. That's where I think the win is. The win for us as a community is talking, getting out of those old models of making money, diversifying our efforts. That means y'all need to think about headphone brands and earrings. Josh is just about to launch a jewelry line. Josh Milan of Blaze, a Grammy Award winning producer, singer, is about to launch a jewelry line.
Wow.
So, so you see what he's doing? Yeah.
Wow. I'll tell you, it's there's a book with Ken Blanchard wrote a book about who moved the cheese.
Yes.
The cheese is moved.
Yes.
The cheese is moved.
Yes. The cheese is moved, definitely.
Wow.
And I think that's really the 2020, 2021 times. What is the last point you asked me this before off camera about what's house music going to be like in the future? And I think it's going to be the kind of experience that you get everything from the app. So you're going to get the ticket to Warren Ankle Park. You're going to get the T-shirt. You're going to get the access to the latest mix, the download track, all right there from the apps or whatever centralized mechanism. That'll be the only way because we will be forced to confront our old business models. We're already confronted with it. When you compare to another city, we're confronted with our old business models. I'm talking about Chosen Few versus all of our summer festivals. We have this debate happening. That's us confronting our current business models. We got to change that. And we won't have a choice because technology is moving faster than you or I. So we're going to have to deal with it as a reactionary thing. And I'm saying let's be proactive. Because if we react all the time, we're going to just let it fall on us. That's what the labels did. When Apple said, you know what, we're going to create a library and have downloaded tracks. So forget the full album. Now you can just buy one track. And you know what, we're going to charge 99 cents. Cool? And the major label said, all right, we only have 3 issues. And I talk about it in the book. You can read it to find out what the 3 issues were. They had nothing to do with the value placed on that download track. It had to do with unrelated things. So we let it happen to us. And I'm saying if we continue that way, we'll just always left with the reaction. We'll never be proactive. And this is the time to be, 2020 is for real. Spiritual, supernatural means opening your eyes. It's a lot of meaning behind 2020. We're at a place now where we don't have any more time. to regurgitate old models. We just don't.
Wow. Wow. You know what? I'll tell you what. Like I said, I browse. I got it on Kindle, but I'm happy to have the physical copy. Because I can't put an autograph on the Kindle.
No, but I can put it on this one.
That's right. That's right. This is fantastic. Well, you know what? We're right down to the wire.
Yep.
I hope we've gone over all the time that we originally intended.
Because you got the full time. I love this. It was great. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Well, I have to do my shameless plug.
Oh, no, do your shameless plug.
You want to find me what I sound like as a DJ, go to djadamcruz.com. You want to pick up the book, I'm on Amazon. Just search me out, Adam Cruz, called Free the Music Business, Tips and Tales from an Indie Music Nerd. Because I think if you go down the vortex, the rabbit hole of a particular subject for years and years, you can call yourself a nerd.
Okay.
So I call myself a nerd. But also, if you don't care for reading, cool. I recorded an audiobook available right now through Audible. So you can get a free account through Audible right now, a trial subscription. You can get through my book, listen, and then cancel. So you don't ever have to pay for it. The other thing, if you prefer the digital way, like my man here, the Kindle is available there. And I also have a soundtrack out. So I placed some of the songs that I talk about in the book while I was creating it, so you get a sense of what it sounds like, the book itself, what that sounds like, and then you can read it as well.
Fantastic.
And then come down to the library now.
Oh, please.
Yeah.
Please, you do yourself a favor.
Yeah, and listen to our music, dwopmusicradio.com, all that stuff.
Absolutely.
EddieNicholas.com.
Wow. Well, listen, we got a lot of stuff here. This is one of those interviews, again, that you need to go back over and over. There's so many gems here. There's so much stuff here. Also, I recommend you go out and buy the book. Again, you can get it on Kindle also. So let's say if you're moving around, you can read it on your phone, Audible, the whole routine. So there's a lot of stuff here. Adam, I want to thank you.
Thank you so much
for
I
coming
really
out.
appreciate it.
I really appreciate you coming out.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to thank everybody for coming out and hanging out.
Thank you so much.
My name is DJ Dan Dan with Soulful House Nation. Get ready, get ready, get ready.